round of talks.
We are not going to accept these extremely high levels of spending. We're not looking for a government shutdown, and I think we'll have some negotiations with short-term extensions with spending cuts in the interim, is my guess.
And the challenge is members of Congress are back in their home districts and states all week. Behind the scenes here, Senate staffers are poring over what the House passed over the weekend, looking for any areas of compromise they might find. But when everybody comes back to town, there will only be 5 days before that deadline to reach some sort of an agreement. And we know in Capitol Hill terms, that's just not much time at all. Savannah?
No, it isn't. Kelly O'Donnell on the Hill for us this morning. Thank you. Senator Scott Brown of Massachusetts is with us now. He's out with a new memoir today in which he reveals that he was molested by a camp counselor when he was just 10 years old. The book is called Against All Odds, My Life of Hardship, Fast Breaks, and Second Chances. Senator Brown, good morning.
Morning.
Good to be with you.
Same here.
I'll start with some news of the day before we get into the book. You saw Kelly's piece. There's talk in Washington of potentially a government shutdown if there's not a deal reached on spending cuts. I ask you, are you willing to see the government shut down to make this point about spending cuts?
Well, I can tell you in our private conversations, there's no Republican who wants to shut down the government at all. What we look for is it's an opportunity actually to bring the sides together to solve our very real fiscal problems. Because when I went down there, $11.95 trillion national debt, it's over $14 trillion in a little over a year. And we need to send a message to the world that not only can we get our budget in order, but our entire fiscal picture.
But nobody wants a government shutdown, but if that's the price of getting the spending cuts you think are necessary.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants a government shutdown. Certainly I don't. I'm hopeful that everyone will kind of get in a room and just hammer things out and look at the budget and say, yes, we can keep this, we can't keep that, and send a very important message to the people of the country and the world that we're serious.
Let's talk about the book. It's very personal, and one of the revelations in it is that you were molested by a camp counselor when you were just 10 years old. What did you want people to know about that?
Well, certainly it was tough. I wrestled with even talking about it, but I felt it was important to let others know that, you can fight back and should fight back, and that if I can help somebody speak up so it doesn't happen to them, then I've done a good thing.
One thing a lot of people have remarked to me, knowing that we would be talking this morning, is I can't believe his wife didn't know until she read it in the book.
Yeah, she knew that something had happened, as we, obviously we've been together 26 years, but she didn't know the extent of it, and my mom and dad didn't either. And in retrospect, it would have told somebody, but that's the problem when you're in that situation. The abusers say, if you tell anybody, I'll kill you, or they won't believe you. I'll make sure they won't believe you. And I was a perfect candidate back then for that type of control.
It's so interesting because you bore that secret for almost 40 years, and then when you revealed it, you did so publicly.
Well, it's a part of who I am, but it's not the only part. It's certainly something I think anybody in that situation wrestles with, and that's what I've done. And like I said, I'm not looking backward. I'm looking forward, and I'm not out to settle any scores. I think it's important not to gloss over the bad things and then just focus on all the great things. It's who I am.
Well, there is some tough stuff in this book, and some of it is hard to read, frankly. You had two stepfathers who you say abused you. The word that came to mind when I read it was vicious. Let me read a portion of something you said happened when you were 6 years old of your stepfather, Dan Sullivan. Quote, "He began pounding my head until my brain rattled like a Jell-O mold turned upside down." How hard was it to relive some of these memories?
Well, you don't relive them, you never forget them. I mean, these people say, well, how can you recount that? That stays with you. Something like that stays with you. I remember it like it happened yesterday.
How does it impact you?
It made me back then, think I needed to be the protector of the family, be the dad, the person who was going to save my mom and my sister. And obviously it was tough, but fortunately my mom and us, we got out of that situation.
You write that you moved 17 times before you were 18 years old.
Yeah.
Both of your parents married 4 times. We've talked about the abuse, and yet you say you wouldn't change anything. And I think a lot of people will read that and say, really?
Yeah, well, if you look at it, when you read the book, my life is like a spider web. If you pull here, then this gets changed. So what do you change? If those things didn't happen, then I may not have been as sensitive to victims' rights, or I may not have been as a worker and a protector and somebody who's always looking out for his own kids and aware of, hey, when you go to the store, make sure you're together. Hey, be careful crossing the street. Don't go here alone. Don't do this. So I think it's helped me be a better person.
What's your relationship with your parents now? I imagine it's hard for them to read.
It is, but it's always been very positive. But like any other family, we're a work in progress, and we'll continue to be a work in progress. I love them. They love me, and they've actually made a fantastic effort.